Howdy, guys, and welcome to night number 30. We're 1 month in. Night number 30 of Big Brother's Season 24's overnight feed recaps, and welcome to Cliff Notes. A good Friday morning to y'all. I hope you had a fantastic week. We had a fun episode last night. Now, I can't say it was quite as surprising as the blind side from the week before. We expected that Nicole was going home up against the block against Taylor, and she did. Nicole, as expected, was evicted. It was a 9-1 vote. That even is not a huge surprise. Once some of the people saw the writing on the wall, everyone wanted to vote with the House. And so as it turns out, a 9-1 vote, the only person voting to save Nicole was her ride or die Rogue Rat Alliance member, Daniel. He went ahead and stayed true to Nicole, voted to keep her. Everyone else went ahead and voted her out the door. So we are now down to 12 House guests. Daniel could be a potential big target out there, but other than that, beyond that, start to get a little interesting to see who may be targeting who going forward. Jury phase is going to be very interesting this season, I do believe. All right, now, one thing that was a little bit of a surprise last night was what was going to happen to Taylor once she survived the block. How are they going to handle the Festie bestie twist for yet another week? Well, as it turns out, Taylor was given the option to join any group that she wanted to, including the trio. Now, she joins a trio. It goes from a trio to a quadro. Is that a word? Yeah, I know. 4 people in that group. Talking about a huge group in terms of any one of them winning a veto protects them all, everything else. I still have to think through the possibilities of how that would have worked. It doesn't matter because Taylor did not choose to go with that group of 3. Instead, she did exactly as had been talked about a little bit earlier. She joined Indy and Alyssa, so that now we've got one trio of Michael, Monty, and Terrence, another trio of Indy, Alyssa, and now Taylor. So 2 groups of 3, and then the rest are still broken up into groups of 2. It's going to be interesting going forward. We'll talk about that in just a second. So we did have that. Now, we also have a new HOH winner. Unfortunately, we did not get to watch the HOH competition on either the live episode or the feeds themselves. Feeds cut out. We didn't get them back until the West Coast feeds. The West Coast episode had aired, and by then the HOH was already over. But we do have a new HOH winner, and that winner is Michael. Michael won the HOH. He's won 3 veto competitions. Guys, a companies. 3 veto competitions. Now he's got an HOH under his belt as well. So I'm very curious to see how the super fan handles his HOH reign and see, does he go for the easy target or does he start making some moves right here and now? Now, the competition itself was apparently running across a balance beam in some form or manner. This is not last night. This is from last season, Big Brother 23. They had a competition. It sounds like it's very similar. You start on one side, you try to move to the end platform, push a button. Some beams are thinner than others. You can take the long way around. You can go the short way. So that's the way it sounds. Apparently, Michael flew through this thing. Some people talked later, said, maybe, I guess he played hockey as a kid, and they're saying maybe he's a professional figure skater or something. Apparently, Michael had some pretty good balance, did well. Turner, not so much. Apparently, Turner fell at one point because he was talking, I think, to Joseph, that he had all kinds of bruises and everything else. And so a little bit worried about that. But now Michael won the competition, so he is now the HOH, and that'll be kind of fun. All right. So with that being said, let's pick up where the feeds kick back in right after around 9 o'clock or so, Big Brother time. As mentioned, we come back to the feeds. We see Michael's got the key around his neck, so we know who's won the HOH. Now, here's something else to keep in mind. Apparently, Kyle came pretty close to winning this competition, and if he had won, that means that Daniel would have been protected, who really seems like he's the biggest target in the house this week. But Kyle almost won. Was he trying to win? And if he was, does that suggest that maybe Kyle isn't so comfortable with his position as Daniel's bestie and potentially going up on the block against Daniel? If Kyle had won, I don't know if the rest of the alliance would have been so happy with him, but at least he would have had protection for the week. And of course, Daniel would have as well, hence the rest of the alliance not being so happy. But we'll see what Kyle's thinking as we go through the evening itself. All right, we've got Michael talking options with Brittany. Those 2 are pretty happy. Brittany has said, we finally get a week to relax. It's not going to be us this week. I know what it's like to have that relief. Just know that at least for 1 week, you're going to be okay. So they're very happy. She's talking options with Michael. They're talking about maybe putting up Monty and Joseph and Terrence as the primary nominations, and then as a backdoor, put up Daniel. The idea: 3 strong guys. They've got a much better chance to potentially win the veto, which means that Daniel does not win the veto. So that's one of their first considerations, is maybe do that. Michael is saying that he does not want Taylor touching the block this week. That was it, 4 weeks now that she's been on the block. He says, nah, she should get a break this week. So I do not want to put Taylor on the block, which means that Indy and Alyssa are also theoretically protected this week. There's been some discussions, but we'll see. All right, he is thinking another option, and this is why I want to see how Michael does his HOH, because he's a super fan. He's got a lot of ideas. I think he's thinking long term. He's thinking that, look, if I go for all guys this week, if I put the group of 3 up on the block, and then I backdoor with Daniel and Kyle, so it's all guys on the block this week, he's saying that may show Jasmine and Indy and Alyssa that we want to work with them, that we're not going for the guys and all that. They're on that side, we're on this side. So maybe it'll show some good faith and good credit to the girls and help them develop the relationship going forward. I like that thinking. That's a smart idea. All right, we've got Kyle and Michael talking. Now, as I mentioned, based on apparently how Kyle did in the HOH comp, maybe he's a little bit nervous this weekend. He does tell Michael, says, look, I'm a little bit worried that if I and Daniel go up on the block, people might start looking at Daniel this week and saying, oh, he's all alone. It's not like last week where Nicole was still trying to run things and thinking there was an alliance. Kyle saying this week, people may just look at Daniel, think that he's alone on this island. He's not really a threat. We can get him out at any point at this time. While they may at the same time look at me and say, a likable guy with a potential to win some comps and all of that. He said, I'm just worried that things could happen over the span of a week where suddenly maybe they leave Daniel alone and I suddenly become a target. So he's a little bit worried about that. And I agree. I absolutely agree. From Michael's standpoint, at least, Daniel's an easy target. If he does that, no blood on his hands, everyone's happy and whatever, but it's the easy choice. It may not be the best choice for Michael. I think that would be more doing the work of other people within his alliance more so than Michael. So he's got some thinking to do this week. All right, we've got Daniel showering in anticipation of becoming a have-not this week. He mentions at one point he chowed down on a lot of chocolate, trying to get as full as he could before becoming a have-not. So he's a little worried about that. We got Turner talking to Michael, saying, look, I really trust this group. If we want to get rid of Jasmine, if you want to get rid of Jasmine, I'm fine if you want to put the 2 of us on the block as a way of getting her out. Just so you know, I'm cool with it. And so Michael appreciates that. We've got Alyssa and Indy talking. Indy is telling Alyssa, said, I'm not voting out Joseph this week. I'm just not going to do it. Does that suggest that they already see Michael as not necessarily being real tight with Monty and Joseph and that side of the house? Perhaps so. I mean, again, they've got to be wondering who Michael's going to target. If not them, then who? So Indy saying, I'm not going to vote out Joseph this week. There's no way. And Alyssa saying, I agree. I'm not going to do it either. We at this point then have Indy talking to the camera just a little bit. But the curious thing is she does say, once Daniel's gone, who is the target? Who's going to be the targets after Daniel gets out the door? Again, everyone's trying to figure out how alliance of 7 after this week will be down to 11 people. An alliance of 7 and a house of 11. That's a lot of folks to be trying to survive this thing. Leftover alliance is not going to last much longer at all. And it is a good question, because here's the thing. Indy's wondering that if I had to make a guess right now, I'm thinking Jasmine could be our first jury member. I think, say Daniel goes home this week, Jasmine easily could be the person heading out the door the next week and go to jury. We'll see. We got a lot of game to play between now and then. All right, we've got Michael and Brittany talking a little bit more. They're talking about the have-nots. They're considering Daniel. He seems like the obvious choice to be a have-not, but they're also a little bit worried. Michael's worried, saying, look, I'm not sure I want him upstairs in the have-not room where he's monitoring everyone who comes in and out, where he's watching everything. Maybe we're better off keeping him downstairs and doing something different. Now, this makes me wonder, would this potentially be a good time for Michael to approach Daniel and say, look, I'm not going to make you a have-not. I'm not making any promises for nominations. I'm just saying I'm not going to make you a have-not. And and I'm not sure that you're as much an enemy as maybe you think you are to me. And start kind of maybe not start at least throwing out the idea that there could be some kind of deal that exists, because I see a time where Michael may want to have someone strong like Daniel on his side if it comes down to him and some of his tighter connections against Monty and Joseph and the kind of the Pound Alliance group. So I just a thought to throw out there. All right, we've got well, let me say this first of all. There's I mentioned that, and this talk about have not going to matter this week. Apparently, the feeds went down for a little while. When they came back, Kyle was talking about the fact that there's not going to be a have not for the week. Apparently, Big Brother didn't say have nots are over. They just said this week no one has to be a have not. So we'll see if it picks back up. Are Taylor and Brittany going to avoid it for the year? I think, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I think those are the only two that have not been have nots. They may not be have nots for the season. If so, they're kind of lucky. I wouldn't have not during my season, but have nots were a lot shorter during my season than this time. All right. We've got Terrence talking to Daniel. He's telling Daniel, saying, look, you're not going to be alone this week. I got your back. We'll still talk and everything else. You just don't need to think that you're just going to be completely alone. I like Terrence saying that. I do. I mean, it's tough to be completely isolated inside that house. So Terrence is saying, you're not going to be alone. He is explaining to Daniel, saying, look, Nicole was playing hard. She had people that were worried about her connections, that they felt like she was leading had a lot of influence over people and all that. So it's a little bit different situation this week, Daniel. You're going to be seen a lot more as just all by yourself. So maybe you've got some room to maneuver because of that. He's also saying that everyone was happy with Daniel. Daniel kind of blew up after this, and we heard as the episode went away saying, I hate this cast. It has a trashy cast, and it's horrible, and very emotional about it. Terrence is saying, look, everyone's glad that you've kind of chilled out, and they understand that you were just super emotional after the vote. Just keep playing it cool, interact with people, don't have a tantrum or anything else. And I think Daniel understands that as well. It was emotional. He lost his partner or something. All right, Terrence is also suggesting that as much as Daniel thinks that it may be all about him this week, Terrence is saying it could be that Monty and Joseph might actually be the backdoor targets this week. He says, I fully expect the possibility that at least that I and Michael and Joseph could go on the block with the idea of sending Monty out the door. Yeah, it could be. Are we a little early for that? Maybe not. So at least he's throwing out the idea that there could be plans afoot, Daniel. Terrence is also just suggesting that Daniel needs to tell Michael, say, look, I know I may be a target. I just want a chance to play in the veto. I just want to have a fair chance to play in the veto. Well, Michael doesn't owe anyone anything, but I do get what Terrence is saying, and it's worth a pitch to see if Michael may consider at least letting Daniel compete for the veto and give him a chance to win safety. Now, from Michael's standpoint, maybe not the end of the world. If Daniel was to win veto and protect himself, well, now Michael's got an excuse for why he doesn't send Daniel out the door as a result. So, yeah, that's something to think about. All right. Now, here's the further idea of what Terrence is suggesting. He's saying, look, if Monty and, or another idea is that if Monty and Joseph and Terrence play and win the veto, then Terrence could use it in Daniel. So if Daniel's playing in the veto comment, is picked as the first nomination, guaranteed to play, and then somehow Monty and Joseph and Terrence also play in the veto and they win it, Terrence is thinking he could use it on Daniel, protect himself, protect Daniel, force Michael to go after some other targets, the girls or someone within the alliance. So they're thinking through possibilities. Very premature, but they're thinking it through at this point. All right, we've got Alyssa and Joseph wondering what happens if one of the trios went on the block, because at that point now you've got two people survive instead of just one. And do they each pick a group to go into? Could they both join the same group and have some huge group at the end of the day? I don't know, but I'm not going to be surprised if the Festie bestie doesn't end after this week. It may be a moot point. I just don't see this going on into the jury phase. So I'm calling it. I think this is the last week we're going to see Festie besties. So we probably won't have anyone having to decide to join a new group next Thursday. I may be wrong, but I'm calling it right now. All right, we've got Joseph talking to Indy, and Joseph saying, look, don't cause problems with Taylor. I know you didn't want her on the block. I know you're upset about it, But he's saying, but don't cause problems, because if y'all go on the block, if you're the final nominees on the block, there's 3 of you. That means 2 of you are safe. 1 of you goes home. And he says, the last thing you want, Indy, is to just cause problems with Taylor to the point that Taylor and Alyssa team up against you and kind of provide a united front against you. So he's saying, just be chill. It's not the end of the world. He's saying you may have some protection just because Taylor's on your side. They may not want to put her up, so you may actually have safety. Taylor's a good competitor. She may win safety for y'all. He said, it's not that bad, but you can't make waves no matter how upset you are with that Taylor's on your squad with you. I think that's all good advice. We've got Joseph's also saying that he may want a group of 3 fighting for the veto. So who knows how everything's gonna work at this point. All right, we got Joseph talking to Kyle and Taylor and saying, yeah, Daniel told me he just wants to make jury at this point. That's always a plea when we get to this point in time. Just keep me 1 more week. I just want to make jury. So he's made that argument. Taylor's telling Joseph that she's thinking that maybe as an idea that he and Monty and Terrence should go on the block. She says, for you and Monty, it'd be your first time. It's time for y'all just to taste the block. And I know y'all do fine. You'll win the veto. It shouldn't be a big deal, but maybe y'all should go on the block. Terrence, well, yeah, he's been on the block before, but he picked you. So sorry, Terrence. So Taylor's starting to throw out some suggestions as well. All right, we've got Alyssa and Kyle talking. Alyssa is saying that Michael had already, before the eviction last night, had already said that he wanted to work with her and Kyle and Turner. And Kyle saying, no, I think that's good. He's telling Alyssa, said, look, do what you can to strengthen your relationship with Michael and Brittany this week, because we may need them. We may need to be working with them. And I think that's a fantastic idea. Alyssa is talking about the fact that she really would rather have Turner stay than Jasmine. So we're already seeing this little girls group getting some splits, some divisions in it. Kyle is worried. He states to her kind of what he said earlier to Michael. He is a little bit worried about being on the block versus Daniel. All right, back to Muffin Gate for just a little bit. Jasmine shows up, says someone has now put a slightly burned, slightly crispy cookie, added it to her muffin bag. She doesn't know what's going on. She's now doing more investigating, asking people who was in the diary room, who was doing this and that, trying to figure out who's screwing with her. I'm buying this. I'm enjoying the pranks associated with Jasmine and her muffins. All right, we've got Monty and Joseph and Indy in the have-not room. Monty's wondering who would want Daniel on the jury. He said, then we got to get rid of Daniel this week. No one wants him on the jury. Well, Michael may want Daniel on the jury. Daniel's a super fan. Michael's a super fan. Daniel's already said that he'll vote for Michael, whether he's being sarcastic or not. He's thrown it out there, and I think Daniel could respect Michael's game. So yeah, Michael may want Daniel on jury, but Monty does not, which I get. Indy is pleading, saying, please don't vote me out because I just want to make jury. I just want, if nothing else, I want to be over at the jury house where I can party and have fun. And I'm sure she would have fun over there. So she's saying, please don't vote me out either. She's suggesting that Jasmine and Turner could go on the block and that Turner could then go home if the veto's not used. So that's her thinking going forward. But after she leaves, Monty says that he likes her, that he really would like to work with her and Jasmine if they get an opportunity. And then you're seeing the leftover split. Could you have a split that consists of Monty and Joseph, Indy and Jasmine versus Michael and Brittany, Kyle, Alyssa, Taylor and Turner? Maybe there's a few people who maybe could flip one way or the other. We don't know where Terrence would land on that. Would he end up being in there with Monty and Joseph? Would Taylor maybe come over with Monty and Joseph? I kind of don't think so. I think Taylor ends up with Brittany and Michael, but we're seeing these splits develop. All right, about 2:00 Big Brother time. Michael finally gets his room. Everyone was so ready. It took forever, but Michael has gotten his room, and we get to watch his viewers, which is always exciting. He got a letter from his fiance, as expected. I think he had a picture of his fiance, a picture of his cats. I can't remember, but he also got an album called Love and Fear by a female singer, Marina. Never heard of her. Listen to a little of the music. It's actually pretty good. So he's got that. After that, he tells everyone he kind of wants to do one-on-one, start talking about nominations and all that. So real quick, let's talk about one-on-ones. Michael starts it off, or Jasmine is first one-on-one with Michael. She's saying that she wants Daniel as a target. He says, look, who would you pick? And she says, well, seems like Daniel's the easy choice, Michael. So she's, I I need to say, well, seems like Daniel's the easy choice, Michael. And that's a horrible impression. I promise I won't ever do it again. But Jasmine's saying Daniel. She's saying that she would never put him or Brittany up. Michael Asker says, look, if I target Daniel as a back door, I need someone to go up as a pawn. Would you be okay being a pawn? And Jasmine gives the correct answer. She says, well, no, I'd really prefer not to. I mean, I'll respect whatever you do as an HOH, but yeah, no, I'm not volunteering to be a pawn. So I just do not to if there's an option out there, Michael. But he tells her, he says, look, I'm leaning towards not putting you up as a pawn because I need a strong veto player if we are going to backdoor Daniel. And unfortunately, you're just not there, Jasmine. So I'm leaning towards not making you a pawn. At which point, Jasmine then starts pointing out that her foot is really starting to swell again. So, yeah, I think Jasmine's probably not going on the block this week. All right, at this point, we then have a one-on-one with Kyle. Kyle's figuring that after Daniel's out the door, targets likely would be Terrence and Jasmine and Indy. At least those are who Kyle would want to have as targets. He's thinking the leftovers could splinter after Daniel leaves. I absolutely agree. I'm all 100% agreement. He is envisioning a split, a little different than I mentioned before. He's envisioning a split where maybe on one side you get Monty and Joseph and Indy and Jasmine and also Taylor and Terrence. So 6 on that side versus Michael and Brittany, Kyle, Turner, and Alyssa. So 5 on the side of Michael and Brittany. Again, I think Taylor may end up on the Michael Brittany side, but Kyle's throwing out the idea that perhaps that wouldn't exist. In other words, he's saying, look, there's 6 over there. There could be 5 over on our side, Michael. So hint, you really don't want to jeopardize sending me out the door, right? Right. I hope you're right. So he's talking about that as well. Kyle's wondering, he's saying, look, how could we keep our side stronger? And he's saying maybe if we added in Daniel to our group of 5, and I can easily bring in Alyssa as well, suddenly that gives us 7 against their 6. So basically, Kyle's suggesting that maybe we don't wait for jury before we start splitting up our nice little friendly family bunch at this point. He's saying maybe bring on at this point. And he doesn't say it in so many words. He kind of hints around it, but bring in Alyssa and Daniel right now. We got 7. While you can take the shot against the other side, we'll stay strong and move forward. Something to think about. All right, we've got all the leftovers in the HOH. We're almost done here. All the leftovers in the HOH room. Monty is suggesting that, look, he says, I get it. Me and Joseph and Terrence, we could go on the block. And now here's interesting. He's throwing that out there. This big sacrificial move. Well, if he goes on the block, the 3 of them, it gives them a very good chance to win the veto, which guarantees that they aren't going on the block as any kind of backdoor blindside. So I think Monty's thinking about that in the back of his head as well. So he's telling Michael, like, yeah, we'll make the sacrifice. We get it. Put the 3 of us up against, whoever ends up randomly getting picked. He said in the worst case situation, if Kyle and Daniel get picked to play, and worst case, they win the veto. He said, if that's the case, well, then if the veto's not used, then Terrence goes home. It is what it is. He says, or if the veto is used by Kyle and Daniel, well, then at that point, we maybe look at Taylor and Indy and Alyssa, and Taylor's like, yeah, right. Again, but he's saying, we'll talk about it. But he says, if the veto's used, put up Taylor and Alyssa and Indy, and then Alyssa goes home. And he said, at least our group is still protected. Taylor, I know you don't want to be on the block again, but we got you, right? He's on, and then Alyssa goes home. Well, now, Michael may buy into some of that plan, but even if he does, he may prefer to have Indy goes home as opposed to Alyssa. Monty threw it up very matter of fact. If that happens, we'll just send Alyssa home. Yeah, it may be Indy more so, which is not what Monty wants, but from Michael and Brittany's side, probably a little bit more palatable. I think we'll find out. All right. With all that being said, everyone's shutting down, calling it a night. We do have Turner up to a few more hijinks. Turner's grabbed that bag of muffins. Jasmine even wrote a little note. Where'd she get a pen? I guess she's got an eyeliner that she used or something that said, this is Jasmine's muffin and cookie, do not eat, or something like that. Well, Turner's not eating it. He's just adding a little water to it to soften it up a little bit, let's say. He does that, gives a little thumbs up to the camera and calls it a night. I'm all for little pranks in the house, and they're having fun with Muffin Gate. So I'm glad Turner's having a little fun with the house right now. With that being said, lights out at 5 o'clock or so, Big Brother time. I expect a lot of one-on-ones today. I don't know when the nominations will take place, but we should have nominations today. That may give us some indications of where Michael's leaning, what he wants to do. Is it going to be a backdoor? Does he maybe secretly have some other targets other than Daniel? It's going to be an exciting 48 hours or so. I will be back tomorrow morning. We'll talk about the nominations and what we think may happen with vetoes, backdoors, all that stuff. Guys, y'all have a fantastic end of the week. Enjoy your Friday. We always enjoy Fridays, right? Enjoy your Friday. I will see y'all tomorrow morning. We'll talk about everything that happened overnight. Until then, SKD 143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.